So our last candidate, we all know, Ambassador Nikki Haley, and she's with her daughter, Rena, today. And let me just give you a little bit of background about Nikki. Ambassador Haley has been born in Bamberg, South Carolina in 1972. She was one of 4 children and the only Indian American family in town. So she was already an outsider when she was little. But Nikki's mom would always say this to her, not to show everyone that she's different, but how she is the same. And she would always hear from her mom that this is the best country to ever live in. In 2004, she was elected South Carolina State House. In 2010, she was elected governor of South Carolina. She was the youngest governor at that time and the first minority governor to be elected. Nikki Haley also has a wonderful husband from Clemson. They met at Clemson University. Michael, a combat veteran, was deployed in Afghanistan in 2013, making Nikki the first governor of the U.S. history to have her spouse deployed. Michael is currently deployed overseas for a year-long mission. Haley has been married 26 years and has 2 children, Rena and Nayland. So let's give a warm welcome to Ambassador Nikki and her daughter, Rena. Great to see you, Ambassador.
Thank you so much.
Rena, thank you so much. So you and I have seen each other a lot over the last 6 months. And it's so great that you're here and that you brought Rena. This is the first time I've met Rena. So.
It's great to have her here. She's here with her husband, Josh. They're newlyweds. They just got married. But, to be back here, I'm glad she could see Iowa.
Yes.
My son, Nayland, he's a senior at college, and so he's in the middle of exams. That's why he's not here. But he got to come for the state fair. And he fell in love with Iowa. I mean, he really did. So it's fun. Now she finally gets to come and see it too. But it's cold outside. I can't believe how cold it is. This is not South Carolina at all.
Well, I got to tell a little story about you. One of the first times I met you, so this was, a year and a half ago, Ambassador came to Northwest Iowa. And what do we have in Northwest Iowa? We have hogs, right? We have cattle, we have hogs. So Nikki comes to me and goes, Randy, I want to take a picture of a hog. I said, you don't know what you're asking for. And she goes, no, I want to go. So we went into a hog, and finally she took a picture with a hog. And then the next hour she goes, Randy, I stink like hogs. It's like, that's money. That's the smell of money. So, but she wanted to get that
I think
done.
that smell was on me for like 2 days.
We all know the feeling. Trust me. So, again, welcome. And I just want you just to take 2 minutes to reintroduce yourself to the people from Northwest Iowa. Tell them why you're running, what it's about, and then if we could pivot over to your daughter, and she could just tell a little bit about yourself, what activities and what work you do.
Well, first of all, it's great to be back here in Iowa. I grew up in a small rural town. 2,500 people, 2 stoplights. You couldn't think about doing something wrong without somebody telling your mom. South Carolina, the area I grew up, is much like Iowa. I grew up playing on a cotton field and in a dairy farm. But it was very much about families taking care of families. Even if it wasn't your child, people treated it like it was your child. And you learned to love each other and take care of each other. And now in a time where our country is in disarray, whether it's the economy and the inflation that's squeezing people hard, whether it's the fact that only 31% of 8th graders in our country are proficient in reading, whether it's crime that we're seeing on our streets, or a border that's open and so irresponsible that it only takes one person for us to have another 9/11, or whether it's the fact that the world is on fire. We have to get this right. It's so important. We have a country to save. And we need to get back to that love of faith and family and country again. And I know we can do that. I believe it. America has an amazing ability to self-correct. Sometimes we have to hit rock bottom to know where up is, and we're there. Now we just have to look up and make it happen. But it's great to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Rena, tell us a little bit about yourself.
My name is Rena. I graduated from Clemson in 2021. Just recently got married to Josh in April.
And he played for Clemson, right?
He did.
And he was on the national championship team?
Yes, he was. And so we met at Clemson, got married in April, and then I became a pediatric nurse. It is a very tough job, but also a very rewarding job. We don't see the best of things there, but knowing that we're helping people is, really important and really special to me. So,
And I'll tell you, I'm so proud of her because when she was 3, in her preschool, they did that, what do you want to be when you grow up? We have the picture of her holding it up saying, when I grow up, I want to go to Clemson and become a nurse. And the fact that she works at the Children's Hospital, so she takes care of anywhere from newborns all the way to the age of 18. And it is truly God's work in a way that you are caring for people that have been through so much. And I'm just so proud of her heart and her faith and her ability to take care of these people. And, I still see her in pigtails. So the idea that she's an adult and, she married such a good man. I mean, if it wasn't cute enough that she's a pediatric nurse at the Children's Hospital, he's an elementary school teacher. And so the two of them are very sweet, but we're so proud of them.
That's great to hear. That is so awesome. And my son just got married, so I can relate to what's going on in your life.
Ambassador Haley, we have enjoyed watching your campaign across Iowa and in the debates. Today we're here to talk about faith and family. We're honored to have your daughter join you, and these issues are so important to the future of our country. How do they inform your leadership style, and how will you ensure our Christian values are at the forefront of a Haley administration?
I strongly believe in faith and family and country because I've lived it. I was thinking back, somebody asked me recently about what was a moment where I felt like faith really carried me. And you'll remember we had that horrific shooting at Mother Emanuel Church. And here was 12 people did what so many in South Carolina do on a Wednesday night. They went to Bible study. But on that night, someone else showed up. He didn't look like them. He didn't act like them. He didn't sound like them. They didn't call the cops. They didn't throw him out. Instead, they pulled up a chair and prayed with him for an hour. And when they bowed their heads in that last prayer, he began to shoot. These were people like Ethel Lance. She would go around Mother Emanuel Church cleaning, but her daughter had died 2 years prior of breast cancer, and she had a broken heart. But she would go around the church singing, "One day at a time, sweet Jesus, that's all I ask of you. Give me the strength to do every day what I have to do." Our youngest victim, Tywanza Sanders, just finished college, had the world in front of him. But on that night, he stood in front of his 87-year-old great-aunt Susie and looked at the killer and said, "You don't have to do this. We mean no harm to you." Or it was people like Cynthia Hurd, whose life motto was simply to be kinder than necessary. And when that happened, it brought South Carolina to her knees. And the national media came in because this was on the heels of Ferguson, and they wanted to make it about race, and they wanted to make it about gun control, and they wanted to make it about all these other issues. And I strong-armed them and said, there will be a time and place where we can talk about those things, but right now we have 9 souls we need to lay to rest. We didn't have the luxury of that because the killer's manifesto came out 2 days later, and he was draped in the Confederate flag. And the Confederate flag is very personal in South Carolina. It stood right in front of the State House. It used to be on top of the State House. They moved it to the front of the State House in 2000. And half of South Carolinians saw the Confederate flag as tradition and heritage. The other half of South Carolinians saw it as slavery and hate. this wasn't about me judging either side. It was getting me to get them to see the best of themselves and go forward. And when when he came out with the manifesto, I called for the Confederate flag to come down. And I called for 4 meetings. I told my staff, I said, I want 4 meetings. I wanted Republican leadership, Democrat leadership. I wanted the congressional delegation, and I wanted community leaders. And I said, don't tell them why I'm calling, because I knew they wouldn't come. And when they showed up for their meetings, I said, at 3 o'clock today, I'm going to ask for the Confederate flag to come down. And if you will stand with me, I will forever be grateful. And if you won't, I won't tell anyone you were ever in this room. And I had my husband Michael with me because I thought he was going to be the only one standing with me at 3 o'clock that day. But that's not what happened. We had Republicans, we had Democrats, we had whites, we had blacks stand up there. But that was the easy part. In order to bring it down, it took 2/3 vote of the House and Senate. It was a tough process. But at the end of it, we didn't have violence. We had vigils. We didn't have protests. We had hugs. And we showed the entire world what strength and grace look like. But the part that made me come to that was that happened on June 17th, 2015. On June 13th of 2015, I had called for a state day of prayer. A day where we were asking South Carolinians to come together to pray for our country, which felt like it was in crisis. And we had thousands of South Carolinians fast, pray, come together. And I just think, and I took a lot of criticism for it. Everybody said, as a governor, I should never call for a state day of prayer. It was, it was not good. It was evangelicals coming together. And I really took a lot of heat. But looking back, I truly believe that state day of prayer was preparing us for the tragedy that was going to happen. And I think it's what saved us at the end of the day. Because I think it really pulled the hearts of South Carolinians. It was the first time in our country we had had a shooting in a place of worship. And I saw God in that. And I think you never know what tomorrow is going to bring. But that faith and that readiness is so incredibly important for what we have ahead.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. It's very special. I want to talk about our children. I have children exactly your children's age, and I worry about our national security. What's happened, we saw in Israel. My wife and I were in Israel several years ago. We were at a kibbutz. We actually knew some of the people that lost their life, and it was very personal. I bleed. My heart bleeds for what happened there. And we see what's happening in Russia, and I should say Ukraine and Russia, and then we see China, we see North Korea, and I fear for what my children will see 20, 30, 40 years down the road. How do we protect our country from the tyrants of Putin and others?
America has to get this right. God help us if we don't. What is frustrating for me is I hear what's coming out of D.C. and they're saying, do we support Ukraine or do we support Israel? Do we support Israel or do we secure the border? That's such a false premise. Our job is national security. It's to protect Americans, but more importantly, to prevent war, right? Because if we can prevent war, we can protect Americans. And I look at what happened in Ukraine. And here is a pro-American, freedom-loving country who was invaded by a thug, and 500,000 people have died because of Putin. I don't think we should give cash to any country. Ukraine's not asking us to put troops on the ground. They want to do this themselves. But dictators always do what they say they're going to do. They're actually very transparent. Hamas said they were going to invade Israel. They did. China said they were going to take Hong Kong. We watched it. Russia said they were going to invade Ukraine. It happened. China says Taiwan is next. We better believe them. Russia has said when they take Ukraine, Poland and the Baltics are next. Those are NATO countries. Then we are at war. We're trying to prevent war. So the key is give them the equipment and ammunition to win. Now think about if Putin had hit rock bottom, which he did, raised the draft age in Russia to 65, getting drones from Iran, getting missiles from North Korea, they were losing. What did their partner Iran do? Hamas invades Israel and has that horrific brutality on Putin's birthday. Putin didn't call Netanyahu. He invited Hamas to Russia. And what happened? The happiest person in the world right now is Putin, because what did America do? Shift their eyes from Ukraine and put it on Israel. Then you look at what happened in Israel. There would be no Hamas without Iran. There would be no Hezbollah without Iran. There wouldn't be the Houthis without Iran. It has never been that Israel needs America. It has always been America needs Israel. Israel is the tip of the spear when it comes to defeating terrorism. When they beheaded those people and burned those babies and raped those girls and dragged their naked bodies down the streets of Gaza, what did they say? Death to Israel, death to America. Now, if we just took care of Ukraine, it would be 3% of our defense budget. The Europeans have paid more, and they should. It's their neighborhood. If we took care of Ukraine and Israel, it would just be 5% of our defense budget. If we took care of Ukraine, Israel, and closed the border, and by the way, closing our southern border is priority job number one. If we did all... America right now is acting like it's September 10th. We better remember what September 12th felt like, because it only takes one person, and you've got thousands crossing that border. So closing our borders, job number one. If we took care of Israel, Ukraine, and the border, that's less than 20% of Biden's green subsidies. So don't let them tell you that you have to pick. What we pick is national security. What we pick is keeping Americans safe. What we pick is preventing further wars. That's what we do. And so that's really the message that we have to understand is on September 12th, we needed a lot of friends. You have to be a friend to get a friend. We need to make sure that America's never so arrogant to think we don't need friends, because we do.
Thank you. Ambassador Haley, we're so happy that Rena's here, and we have a question for you, Rena. What's it like to have your mom running for president? How does she keep connected with you while she's on the campaign trail? And then maybe just give us your pitch about why you think she would be the best candidate for our party to run for president of the United States.
Sure. So my dad was recently deployed, and so he used to always be that person for her in the front row at all of her debates. And so recently I took on that role of being that person for her in the front row. I know you probably won't see it on TV, but she'll smile at me, I'll smile back at her, I'll give her a thumbs up, help her keep that energy going. And so that's been really special because she's always been so supportive of me and my brother. Coming to my track meets, my cheerleading stuff, Nayland's basketball games. And so I think the most special thing of all of this is being able to support her like she's been able to support me. And so that's what I've been taking on. Nayland's been taking on $5 Friday, which is donating $5 every Friday and sending out a message to supporters. And then
those are Michael was doing the $5 Fridays, and on Fridays there's an email that goes out. It would be from Michael talking about me, just telling something about me that they didn't know. So Nayland has taken on the $5 Fridays. So he now tells stories about me and asks for the $5 Fridays. And so now Michael and Nayland stay in touch and compete for who's doing better on the $5 Fridays.
And then, yeah, it's just been really fun. It's still been normal. It's different in the way that it's definitely busier, traveling a lot, but we've always been a very close family, and I feel like this is really a testament to that because I meet her wherever she is, she'll meet us where we are, and so we've still very much valued family and making that time still.
That's great, Neil. Thank you. Thank you for that. I'm going to ask a question from one of the Dorch students here. I know this is important to both me and you. We are against earmarks and you name it. It comes from Jonah Hoffmeyer, who is a digital media major. Jonah, can you raise your hand? Are you around, Jonah? There he is right there. All right, Jonah, thanks for the question. His question is this: how do you plan on reeling in American spending? And how do you plan to work with Democrats to do this on this issue? And we have to. I mean, it's almost bipartisan, so we've got to figure this out.
So first, can I say, do you know how blessed you are to have Randy Feenstra fighting for you every day? Mainly because he's normal, right? Like, that's what we want. We need normal people serving, in Congress and in our country, like not politicos that this is what they live, eat, and breathe every day, but people who have families, who have a faith, who understand the price of a dollar. And I will tell you, I love that Randy hasn't been taken by DC. He hasn't kind of fallen into that mission creep that happens. You talk about our budget situation. The accountant in me, don't you think it would be good to have an accountant in the White House? The accountant in me sees how out of control the spending is. $34 trillion in debt. We are having to borrow money just to make our interest payments. China owns some of that debt. And while it's easy to blame Biden, and he sent us down this socialism creep that is dangerous that we have to get out of, our Republicans have done that to us too. I mean, look at the $2.2 trillion COVID stimulus bill that passed with no accountability. We now have 100 million Americans on Medicaid, 42 million Americans on food stamps. That's a third of our country. And did Republicans try and make it right? No, they opened up earmarks and pet projects for the first time in 10 years, pushing through 7,000 of them last December. Now, I want to say Randy Feenstra does not ask for any of these earmarks or pet projects, and I thank you for that because that's really important. But in all of that, in the 2024 appropriations budget, Republicans asked for $7.4 billion worth of those pet projects and earmarks. Democrats asked for $2.8 billion. So who are the big spenders? And these are things like $30 million on an honors college in Vermont, $10 million to tear down a hotel in Alaska, $7.5 million on a courthouse in Colorado, and the list goes on. All while 1 in 6 American families can't afford their utility bill. 60% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. 50% of American families can't afford diapers. So the focus really is, when I become president, we will stop the spending, we'll stop the borrowing, we will eliminate the earmarks, and I will veto any spending bill that doesn't take us back to pre-COVID levels. That will save us trillions. The next thing is we need to open up the middle class. We are watching the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. And the way we do that is we will eliminate the federal gas and diesel tax in this country. And we'll cut taxes on the middle class, and we will make the small business tax cuts permanent. They made the corporate tax cuts permanent, but they made the small business tax cuts temporary. When we make the small business tax cuts permanent, that's the heartbeat of our economy. And then you're really getting to where we need to go. But, everybody's always like, well, how are you going to go and do those cuts? The tone at the top matters. And I will do, as president, what I did as governor. One of the first things I did was I replaced the head of every agency. And I put, whether they were doing a good job or not, and I put someone new to freshen it up. The second thing is I sent people, teams, into each agency to clean it up. Pull down bureaucracy, pull down old regs, get rid of problem children. And then I gave them 90-day benchmarks that they had to prove every 90 days to show the taxpayer a return on investment. And then finally, I saw agencies were spending because they were worried they weren't going to get the same amount of money the next year. So I put all of the spending online for everybody to see. And then I incentivized them to start giving money back to the taxpayers. And magic happened. They started to compete. Once I set the tone at the top there, then I went to my legislature and said, your turn. We will go to Congress and at first give y'all a couple of things that are easy and remind them what it's like to win again. And then start pushing the harder things. We can do this, but they need to know their purpose. They need to know how it helps everyday Americans. That's how we'll do it. But you start yourself by showing you're really ready to make the hard decisions. And then you go forward.
And that's the key. We got to make hard decisions.
That's right.
It's got to be done.
That's right.
Absolutely.
So, Ambassador, as we approach January 15th, what is your closing pitch for Iowa voters? What makes you the best candidate for our party to beat Joe Biden?
You know, I think the fact that the country is in disarray. You know, we see it with the budget out of control. We see it with education where parents don't feel like their kids are caught up. We see it with crime on our streets or border that's irresponsible, reckless, and dangerous. We see it with our world on fire. So there's chaos all around us. But what I know is you don't defeat Democrat chaos with Republican chaos. And that's what Donald Trump gives us. Rightly or wrongly. I strongly believe that Donald Trump was the right president at the right time. I think he broke the things that needed to be broken. I agreed with a lot of his policies. I had a great working relationship with him. But rightly or wrongly, chaos follows him. You know I'm right. Chaos follows him. And we can't have a country in disarray and a world on fire and survive this chaos. And so we have to have a new generational conservative leader. And in order to do that, we've got to acknowledge some hard truths. Republicans have lost the last 7 out of 8 popular votes for president. That's nothing to be proud of. We should want to win the majority of Americans. That's how we'll get there. When we do that, that's when you start to be strong and proud again. Go back to our national purpose and the values that made this country so great. You know, someone asked me when I announced why I was running. And I said, my parents came here 50 years ago to an America that was strong and proud and full of opportunities. I want them to know that country again. I'm doing this for my husband, Michael, who's overseas serving, and the men and women in the military. They need to know their sacrifice matters. They need to know that we love our country. I'm doing this for my daughter, who just got married, and I saw how hard it was for her and her husband to buy a home. And I'm doing this for my son, who's a senior in college. And I am tired of watching him have to worry about writing papers of things he doesn't believe in just to get an A. That's not us. That's not America. For the first time, 81% of Americans don't think their kids are going to live as good of a life as we have. We can't be okay with that. We have a country to save. But I'll promise you this. If you join with me in this fight, I know that our best days are yet to come.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
You.
God bless you.
You.
Thank you.